coming up on Now See This. If traffic doesn't spill this renegade biker,
oh, look how dangerous that is.
his hot rodding will.
Whoa!
If this fall doesn't bust these base jumpers, the cops certainly must. And if a school bus trapped in icy waters makes you shiver, the rescue will make you quiver. It's enough to make a puppy pout, a child weep, and a grown man cry.
Please, man, please.
Think you've seen it all? Now see this. A festival crowd has gathered on the English shoreline at the 6th annual Lowestoft Air Show. Aircraft from around the world wow spectators at this yearly spectacle by the sea. One of the highlights is this Harrier GR-7, the Royal Air Force's vertical takeoff fixed-wing fighter jet. Flight Lieutenant Anthony Kahn hovers 100 feet above the water, using over 20,000 pounds of thrust to create a perfect standstill. But technology that precise leaves no room for error. Onlookers are stunned by the sudden turn of events.
I saw it going down, I thought it shouldn't be doing that.
There was one big bang.
The cause of the failure is unknown, but as former U.S. Harrier pilot Peter S. Bowen explains, the pilot has only seconds to make the decision to eject.
Anytime you're flying the airplane and you have a problem, the big question on ejection is, can I fly the airplane? And you have to make that decision almost instantly, especially when an engine quits, because you're literally falling out of the sky.
Because the Harrier is a unique aircraft, it brings with it some unique problems.
Well, the Harrier is a single-engine airplane. When you lose an engine in a Harrier, you pretty much have to use the ejection seat to get home.
The $50 million aircraft plunges into the drink. And Lieutenant Kahn catapults into the throes of unimaginable danger. Not only does the pilot land amidst the twisted mass of airplane wreckage, he splashes into a volatile cocktail of jet fuel, enough to engulf the plane in an inferno.
He suddenly started to sink, and then there was the bang with the ejector seat, and he hit the sea.
The force of the landing shatters a bone in the pilot's foot. His hope of swimming away from the dangerous fuel leak sinks fast. Rescue boats scramble to reach the pilot as police on shore instruct stunned swimmers to get out of the water. The aircraft is still leaking fuel, and authorities fear that even a lifeboat engine could trigger an explosion. But in fact, it's the water that keeps the fire from igniting and allows the rescue team to save the pilot.
I went to one and said, it's all right, the pilot's all right. I said, it doesn't matter about a multi-million-pound aircraft.
The crowd is relieved as a Sea King military helicopter hoists the lieutenant to safety. It's a day that marks the Lowestoft Air Show's first accident in an otherwise flawless 6-year history. But in retrospect, Lieutenant Anthony Kahn realized that fate was on his side that day. Because for a man who makes his living among the clouds, he owes his life to the sea. Los Angeles, California.
There he is, that's him. Don't take your camera off of that guy.
Moments ago, a hot-dogging motorcycle caught the attention of police, and he made his contempt toward them very clear.
The Northeast Division of the LAPD tried to get this guy to pull over. He did not.
But he doesn't act like someone who truly wants to get away. Instead, he cruises calmly down the carpool lane, giving television choppers a chance to catch up. At one point, the rider even slows down, looking behind him to make sure he still has pursuers. The officers make the terrifying realization, this guy is playing to the cameras.
He'll slow down momentarily, looks behind him, he sees that he's indeed being followed, and then he hits the gas and takes off again.
It's the worst kind of suspect, one whose only motive is to cause as much mayhem as possible. A cruiser gets ahead of the chase.
As I look ahead, I can see black and white on the shoulder, right there on the left side of your screen. The motorcycle goes flying right by.
The added police presence only encourages the biker's performance. He's got a growing audience, and he's ready to dazzle the crowd.
I'm just amazed at the speeds at which we're seeing right now.
He accelerates to 110 miles an hour, showing off his bike's power.
The helicopter is barely able to keep up.
When traffic builds up, he begins a deadly game of high-speed lane splitting.
Look how dangerous that is. He's moving right through the traffic here at an extremely high rate of speed.
Police cruisers are left in the dust. And as for the choppers, he's got a plan to upstage them later.
Somebody decides that they want to change lanes, this guy's had it.
But just when he thinks he's stolen the show, law enforcement sends in a two-wheeler of their own.
Look at that, CHP is behind him.
A motorcycle patrolman picks up the chase, and he matches the renegade biker move for move.
You can see him really take off there at 60 miles an hour now.
The suspect suddenly realizes that the gig is up. He sideswipes a van.
Oh!
But he still can't seem to shake the officer on his tail.
He is flying, and still law enforcement right behind him. Extremely dangerous.
Panicking, the rider veers across the dirt road towards an exit ramp.
Oh, he's on the dirt road. He's getting off the freeway,
The cop backs off. With pedestrians out on the streets, continuing the ground pursuit is too dangerous.
There are no units behind this guy, but still very dangerous. Look at that.
Once again, the chase is left to the helicopters.
And he accelerates at a very high rate of speed.
But the rider believes his slick moves have sprung him, and he's ready to give the news cameras his grand finale.
Whoa! Control that camera!
The high-speed glory seeker actually pops a wheelie as he flies down the street, a stunt for all of Los Angeles to see. Then, having lost the police behind him, he makes the one move that could lose choppers. He races down a tree-lined street and disappears from sight. The news pilot can't find the biker anywhere, and he is understandably frustrated.
Oh, man. Ah!
By the time the cruisers arrive, the bike is nowhere to be found.
Cop's coming up now. He went into the apartment complex there.
It looks like the guy's gotten away clean, until he suddenly pulls his wildest trick yet.
Is that the guy?
Unbelievably, the rider steps outside talking on the phone. He's telling his friends about the chase and looking at the news chopper insignias to see which channel they should watch.
Yeah, I think he put a sweatshirt on.
He's wearing a different top now, thinking that the quick change will fool police.
It's a blue sweatshirt. That was him.
No such luck. Officers converge at his front door and are instantly met by the man's distraught family members. They argue with police, hoping the cops will relent, but their efforts are to no avail.
There he is, that's him.
The biker is hauled off away from his home, and his family can only watch and wonder why he did it. For 15 minutes of fame, he put his very life in jeopardy.
I'm just amazed at the speeds that we're seeing.
He had taunted authorities for the sheer thrill of it.
Whoa!
But the very cameras that he was playing to
Is that the guy?
took away any chance he'll ever have at an encore. A raging storm outside of Waco, Texas, has turned a normally peaceful creek into a potential killer. Just downstream, a school bus has been swept off a back road and now sits mired in the furious floodwaters. On board are the driver and 3 local school children, siblings. Emergency personnel arrive on the scene, but they can't reach the bus on their own. A nearby Army base dispatches a powerful Black Hawk helicopter to the rescue. But for Chief Pilot Derek Mitchell and his crew, it won't be easy.
As a team, this was our first rescue together. The primary consideration that we had was the winds.
In 20-knot gusts, Sergeant Michael Thomas is lowered over 60 feet. The plan is to land as close as possible to the small escape hatch. As he dangles over the target, he gives his crew the okay to lower him further. But when the winds suddenly shift, the sergeant finds himself desperately scrambling to grab onto anything. Mitchell fights to steady the chopper.
There's a high possibility that we could get entangled with the bus. The cable could get entangled with the bus, with the tree, and then in theory we would be anchored to some type of fixed object on the ground.
Since Mitchell can't see directly beneath him, he must rely on Crew Chief Brent Town to shout directions to him. The rescuer finally lands safely and calls out to the first victim. But the trip back will prove even more harrowing than the drop. Almost immediately, 5-year-old Tamara and Sergeant Thomas slide into the low branches a few feet above the water. They appear to be hopelessly snagged. And any sudden yank from above could send Tamara falling from her rescuer's arms.
When PFC Town called us to the right, he said, just come bring the helicopter to the right, which is what we did. Eventually, they came free of the trees.
Within seconds, the little girl is hoisted to safety. Now they have to do it all over again. But time is running out. The river is rising, threatening to wash the bus downstream.
We didn't know how stable it was in the stream, if it was lodged up against something or just barely hanging there.
This time, the sergeant carefully extracts 7-year-old Joshua. The boy is pulled safely inside, and it appears the rescue is going well. But unspoken among the crew is their fear about the amount of wind produced by the low-flying chopper's own blades.
One of the things about the rotor wash and being too low is we were afraid it was going to dislodge the bus in the stream and push that downstream.
For now, the bus holds fast, and big brother 11-year-old Scott emerges. To reassure the driver, he even gives him a thumbs up, and he's whisked to safety. When the driver is pulled from the vehicle and lands on solid ground, everyone is finally safe and sound.
It was good to be done and have everything successful, and being able to take him back and put him on the ground and be able to say, yeah, we helped out the community. It wasn't until later when we got back and actually saw video footage of it that we realized how serious it could have been.
With sure and steady hands, Derek Mitchell and his fellow rescuers were able to overcome a literal flood of obstacles. For 20 long minutes, they worked flawlessly as a team to save 4 lives and keep one very relieved family intact.
Fire rescue, the address of emergency.
In Jacksonville, Florida, a freak accident traps a helpless construction worker. A concrete support for an elevator shaft has fallen, pinning this man's leg against the opposite wall. The foreman calls 911.
The guy's got his leg trapped.
Okay, trapped in what?
Between 2 pieces of concrete. We're erecting an elevator tower.
Is he in the air or on the ground?
He's up in the air.
The firemen arrive, and gambling that the other wall is strong enough to support a ladder, they climb directly to the injured man. His name is Andre Tarver. And he will have to remain very calm and cool for the next few minutes, because if he panics or makes a wrong move, he could lose his leg.
The first thing we had to do is secure the patient and try to get the concrete slab secured where they wouldn't move any further.
Go ahead and get us 150 foot of rope. We can boom up, get above us.
The crane quickly moves into place. They hook Andre to a cable. His pain is intense, but nothing compared to what it could be when the pressure is lifted from his leg. Andre is already at the limit of his endurance, but he knows one thing. If he passes out now, his dead weight will make the rescue more dangerous for everyone.
Man, put the airbag under there, please, man, please, man.
They have to keep him conscious while they insert the small but powerful airbags between the concrete slabs. Amazingly, these slim little airbags are capable of lifting 28,000 pounds. But putting that kind of pressure between the walls could cause even bigger problems.
There's a lot of weight there. I mean, and it's kind of hanging on a precarious way and everything. We were concerned just trying to set up that we might have a failure of what was already existing.
Both walls now pose a threat.
It can go either way. If it tips, it can go either way. Let's get all the people away from all this stuff. All right, I got them coming.
For a moment, Andre loses faith in the men who are helping him.
Let them go head on with what they're doing, man. Stay calm, baby. Stay calm.
As Andre's friends and fellow workers watch hopefully from below, the firemen are finally ready to give it a try.
We'll pump it out right now for you.
Despite his pain, Andre is still alert enough to help with his own rescue. This is the most critical moment of the entire operation. The concrete slab lifts a fraction of an inch, then another. Finally, it moves just enough. No one forgets that this wall can give way at any moment. Very carefully, they start to help him. But Andre isn't about to let them carry him down. Pain or no pain, he's walking down under his own power.
It was good. He just wanted to get down. He was getting impatient and everything, but it was really well. He was very fortunate they did not have any worse trauma than he did to his leg.
And he knows who's responsible for his good fortune.
Thank you, gentlemen. I really do appreciate it.
The country of Colombia has the highest kidnapping rate in the world, and in the city of Bogota, this mother's child is being held for ransom. They're just an ordinary family, but in Colombia, they're considered affluent, and therefore targets. But they're about to fight back. Enter the paid mercenary, hired by the child's parents to track down the perpetrators. A news stringer documents the rescue as the mercenary force closes in on the location. They believe that the child is being held within these walls. In the pre-dawn hours of the morning, and with the perimeter of the apartment complex secured, the paid rescue force makes their move. The armed soldiers rush into the compound, smashing down doors and forcing their way inside. The stunned kidnappers wake up to find guns aimed at them from every angle. Their crime has finally caught up to them. The child is whisked away by one of the rescuers while the kidnappers are apprehended. The mother's prayer has been answered. Her child is safe. But after weeks of captivity, the trauma he's experienced may take years to erase. The little boy is comforted as he waits quietly in the arms of a social worker. Unfortunately, scenes like this are all too commonplace, and the neighborhood barely seems to take notice. In the wake of the recovery, the child's father rushes with open arms to thank the men who saved his boy.
Mayor, que bien usted. General. Uy, general, usted es un equipo.
Mother and son are reunited in an emotional embrace. To her, it's nothing short of a miracle that her son is once again in her arms. News crews crowd around the family in search of a headline, and the story they get proves to be as unbelievable as the rescue.
It's a crime. It's a crime. Everything they've been doing. Please be careful with service employees. They do not have the forgiveness of God.
It turns out that the kidnapping was an inside job. It was the family's housekeeper who was the inside link with the whole operation. For this family, enough is enough. They've made a decision to leave Colombia for good, fearing that they might again become targets. The use of mercenaries remains a controversial approach to justice. But in a land where affluent families are subject to extortion, mercenaries will never be short of a job. The sun is rising in Uddevalla, Sweden. And Marcus Olofsson and Michael Ledin are about to go parachuting off a 500-foot tall construction crane. It's called base jumping. Typically, base jumpers will leap from just about anything, as long as it's a fixed object at least 300 feet tall.
I prefer base jumping because it gives me more freedom and more adrenaline.
Not only is it extremely dangerous, it's also illegal if you happen to trespass. So today, the thrill of surviving a base jump is matched only by the thrill of keeping one step ahead of the cops. A quick check down the road, and these base jumping outlaws are home free.
Top of base.
This morning's jump will be a special challenge. Michael and Marcus have brought their base jumping buddies to this illegal site with them. The more the merrier.
Top of base.
Yes, handen från det här objektet.
Här, gubbet.
But by the time they all climb to the top of the crane, the fog has rolled in, completely obscuring the ground.
I always try to jump when the weather conditions are good.
The men have to decide whether it's safe enough to jump, or whether they should turn back. Not surprisingly, they decide to go for it. To make the safest leap they can, they have to climb to the very end of the crane's 100-foot arm. If they jumped any closer to the body of the crane, there's a danger of hitting it on the way down. So out they go, their gloves carefully gripping the cold steel, their feet cautiously tapping around for each solid foothold, while the cameraman does his version of whistling in the dark. They make it to the end. The fog seems to be even worse, but they're not going to wait for the sun to burn it off. The police could already be on their way. They have to jump now.
Line up. Are we ready to roll? On gear.
One by one, the men plunge blindly into the mist. Because of the low altitude, each jumper will have less than 3 seconds of free fall before deploying his parachute. Finally, it's the cameraman's turn. He jumps and soon realizes that the wind could either force him into the water or put him straight into the middle of the construction zone. With precision steering, he narrowly misses a large storage unit and lands on the shore.
Akta skärmen! Hjälp han om det blir blött. Det här är inte ofta man får se det här när man kommer till jobbet på lördag, va?
Now it's time for another kind of exhilaration. It seems a construction worker who arrived early has called the police. They have only seconds to make it through the woods to their cars. Sure enough, a cruiser is spotted through the trees. They hit the gas and in true base jumper fashion, tape the whole thing. But the officer cuts them off, and these base jumpers are busted.
When the police caught us, they checked our IDs. And after that, we had to pay $900 for trespassing.
For Michael and his friends, the fine will be no deterrent to them getting out and doing it all over again. They see $900 as a small price to pay for the kind of rush that can only come from riding the wind. And then running like the wind to get away. In Auckland, New Zealand, 5 fire trucks and 15 rescue workers have converged on a small house, hoping to save a life. The victim? A 3.5-week-old puppy. The runt of this mother's recent litter, the little pooch got itself stuck in a sewage drain off the back porch. And the drain is under a 6-inch slab of concrete. Determined to reach the stranded pup, the men cut into the concrete with a diamond-tipped industrial saw. It's a risky operation. They can't get too close to the pipe for fear of injuring the dog. When a sledgehammer doesn't break up the slab fast enough, they bring in the jackhammer. The intense noise is more than even the rescuers can handle, and it terrifies the trapped puppy. When they finally break through, the dog's owner, Steve Hill, reaches into the filthy pipe. But he realizes all their efforts to get closer to the pup have backfired.
That's further away to hear it.
The shell-shocked canine has retreated too far. Now it's time for Plan B.
Doesn't hear at all.
Out in the yard, the dedicated men dig up a section of pipe that is downhill from the porch. The idea is to give the dog an easy escape route. To help it along, they'll grease the way with some water.
There he is.
And the dog should slip right out.
Just a little water slide.
But it turns out the dog isn't just scared. It's gotten itself stuck near the upper end. And the very water meant to help it free now threatens to drown the helpless creature. On the porch, the owner redoubles his efforts to reach the puppy. This time, he can feel it quivering just beyond his fingertips. He makes one last reach and finally snags the frightened pooch.
You little bastard.
The puppy may have spent the last hour and a half trapped in a sewer pipe, but to its mother, it never smelled sweeter. The two are happily reunited, and all it took was the collective muscle of an entire fire brigade and one very dogged owner.